Man, the irony of me sharing a clip of this man, Paul Heyman, who, by the way, really quick, I'll sort of read there, really quick, we're specifically going to talk about Brock Lesnar returning to WWE at SummerSlam, what that means for not only the WWE TKO, but the fight game, and I'll give you the backstory on why I'm such a big fan of Brock Lesnar, how he got me into UFC and the fight game, and this guy right here, but I don't want to step on what he says in this. A lot of people are pissed off at what he has to say in this video, but let's get to it. I tried full screening this before, but yeah, I made my whole recording um absolute one word a minute, absolute shit out. But let's get to this interview. Please, guys, I'll leave a link down below. Go watch the full thing. He even goes into like how he was helping out Strike Force and all of them back in the day. But yeah.
Add mystique and intrigue, we have to be very careful 24/7, 365.
It was brilliant.
And that's fine. Yeah, I liked it.
Brock Lesnar, how long has that been in the works for?
That happened real quick.
Really?
Yeah, that happened.
Like, what's real quick? Week, 2 weeks?
A couple weeks.
Okay.
I mean, at least to my knowledge. I got tagged into it after the deal was done.
Okay. And when you say deal, like, did he need a deal to come back? What do you mean by deals?
Well, he wasn't coming back on speculation.
No,
he is Brock Lesnar.
No. What I mean by that is, like, did he have to sign a new contract, or was he still? Because we hadn't seen him for 2 years.
Oh, but I'm sure there's a new deal involved.
Okay. And obviously, this has been met with some criticism, right? There's still this ongoing.
Everything in life is met with criticism. I don't pay attention to that.
Is the criticism fair?
Nah, I don't. I don't pay attention to it. He's here. See, that's a reality of the fact. He's here. And if you were in MetLife Stadium on Sunday.
Yeah, I wanted him to talk there, but that's the part that I see a lot of people frustrated about. I'm sorry if I had other stuff popping up on my screen. My computer is opening random programs. But that clip right there where he's like, I don't care about the outside noise. He is here. The fans are happy. I'm happy. That is where this entire internet drama, whatever you may have it, is starting to, spiral out of control over, because Paul Heyman is an executive at WWE, which means he's an executive to TKO. And what is the bottom line that this company needs to survive? Money. It's the sad truth of our business. Whether you agree with this decision or not, and Brock Lesnar brings in the kind of money that only a McGregor, a Mike Tyson, a Hulk Hogan bring in, right? And that's something you can't dispute. At the end of the day, numbers don't lie. But let's continue on.
You would understand that return meant a lot to that audience. That audience was jacked to see Brock Lesnar come out and to see him F5 John Cena. Nobody left MetLife Stadium going, oh, God, they brought back Brock. People were just going nuts. That's our paying audience. They're happy to see him. I'm happy to be part of a team that presents him. Everyone has criticism in life. There are people that criticize Jesus. There are people that criticize Moses. There are people that criticize Muhammad. There are people that criticize God or gods. There is no president that has ever existed with 100% approval rating. Or there's no president that's ever existed that someone hasn't pointed to and say, that president sucked. There are people who to this day think Abraham Lincoln sucked. They're wrong, but they think it. There are people who thought FDR sucked. They're wrong, but they think it. Bill Clinton doesn't have a 100% approval rating. Donald Trump doesn't have a 100% approval rating. Nobody does. There's always going to be critics of anything that we do. And very few people ever make it to the top in life without either making mistakes or having skeletons in their closet. Obviously, the decision was made. It's time to bring back Brock Lesnar. Whatever that decision is based on, I respect it. If they're critics of it, get over it. He's here. And he's going to be here. And you ain't going to be able to cancel him. And I'm happy to have him back because the audience is happy to have him back. If we brought him back and the audience rebelled against it, I wouldn't be happy to have him back. I'd be like, oh man, this doesn't work. But it works. So I'm happy about it.
Were you expecting at some point to see him back?
That is why I have so much respect for this guy. Because, again, I'm going to link down some interviews down below if I remember. This guy has been around Brock Lesnar since 2002 when Brock Lesnar broke into WWE and was the next big thing. He has always been around. I believe he said, like, their sons are around the same age, too. Like, that's a guy right there. When I listen to that, nobody is media trained to the level of a Paul Heyman. But that's exactly how you should look at business. Disney looks at business. Again, almost ESPN. At the end of the day, the audience, the paying customer, is who they are going to listen to. Like, that's a problem that fucking Activision has, right? I grew up a big Call of Duty fan. I haven't fucking touched that series since 2019. That Modern Warfare game was utter dog shit. And they're just releasing swap after swap. And shout out Blaine Truth. Blaine Truth, man, I've been watching him for years. Like, I grew up watching COD commentary, and a lot of that reflects into how I cover MMA if you guys have been around it. But like Blaine Truth has been covering it where like Activision is not listening to their audience. This is a rare occasion where a multi-billion-dollar company is listening to the individual that is paying however thousands to get in, buying whatever merch, buying whatever replica belt. That's who they're targeting. And that's 100% the thing I've always loved about Paul Heyman is that Paul, to me at least, you get exactly what is on his mind, but he's able to toe the line and, break kayfabe, as they say in the wrestling scene of, he'll let you in on exactly what went down, like what goes down, like how it's being played out. Like that's like again, wrestling's fake, right? But that's again part of the reason for love it still is like whether they connect with the wrestler, like they're in on basically a movie, right? Like any other TV show. And Brock Lesnar, man, has been the biggest point of combat sports for 2 decades. Like this guy, I believe, yeah, it's 2002, right? Because, all of those guys broken at the same time, like Randy Orton, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, like that was the four powerhouses back then. And Brock Lesnar was the guy that Vince McMahon looked at that Paul Heyman even said, this is the next big thing, which was his, tagline, right? And he fucking went on to do everything, man. Won that championship really young, multiple time world champion, headlined WrestleMania, one of the biggest shows up there with the Super Bowl, right? As far as, sports and athletics, Brock Lesnar has done what very few have ever done. Like, I put Brock Lesnar up there with, like, Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Conor McGregor. This guy transcended combat sports. And, we're not even talking about how much of a fucking freak this guy was in college, right? NCAA Division One, all that shit. Let's read this article. Brock Lesnar, and this is furthering my point, right? Brock Lesnar remained a top paid WWE star during absence. WWE maintained Brock Lesnar as one of their highest paid performers throughout his absence while facing legal issues. According to Wrestling Observer newswriter Dave Meltzer, shout out Dave Meltzer, he's been around for decades. I've watched a lot of documentaries that he has been involved in. Really like that dude. The Beast Incarnate was never suspended and remained under full contract during the period when he was absent from WWE program, like he should have. Meltzer's report reveals that Lesnar continued receiving his substantial compensation despite not appearing on television. Brock Lesnar even though not used, fully paid during that time of his absence and was among the highest paid wrestlers in the company, Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer. He was never suspended and obviously kept under contract. If what he did was going to end the relationship with him, he'd have been let go. That's the reality. Which is 100% true, right? If you can't, like, again, what was written in this lawsuit, and you can go look this up, I've done multiple videos on it, they were texting back and forth. Allegedly, Brock Lesnar wanted some piss videos. Is that true? I don't know. But they never met up, there was no physical contact, and this is Vince McMahon using this girl as a leverage. Well, again, when you read the text, went along with everything. I'm not defending Vince McMahon. What Vince did, like, you don't do that. Like you don't normally do that in, a day-to-day fucking, you know, session there. But, like, I've always stressed this. He never met her in person. Only text messages, which she was a willing participant of. Let's continue though. The report suggests WWE financial commitment to Lesnar indicated their confidence in his eventual return, rather than cutting ties or suspending the former UFC heavyweight champion. The company maintained its lucrative deal with legal matters, while legal matters were, were resolved. According to Meltzer, Lesnar received legal clearance approximately 1 month before his return. Though this information was kept confidential, he was always going to return when legal cleared him. Legal cleared him about 1 month prior to the show, which was kept secret and allowed for the return. Right there. He's not even involved in the lawsuit anymore. Well, he is. But they determined, okay, there's nothing in here where we're going to bring this guy back and say, oh, by the way, he did this, I you guys remember what was in that Vince lawsuit? It was funny, but at the same time, it's sick shit. I don't even remember. Oh my god. Yeah, I remember the threesome one. That will be the one that always stands out to me. Well, like Electra and John Warren. Yeah. Ew. Anyways, the revelations provide insight into WWE's handling of talent during legal controversies. By maintaining Lesnar'S contract and compensation, the company demonstrated their belief that this situation would be resolved favorably. Lesnar's absence from WWE program had sparked speculation about his future with the company. However, Meltzer report indicates WWE never considered the situation career-ending, maintaining their investment in one of their most prominent stars throughout the legal process, like they should. And might as well. Let's read this. I did look at this, but again, you have to look at my eyes. I spent at least a good month and a half following this story. Like those of you did, right? Obviously, Vince McMahon, they did the Netflix thing. The more that came out about this, though, the less I really viewed Janel Grant as a complete victim. Attack me if you want, but I said this. So, following Bill Question's return to WWE program at Summerslam Sunday 2025, representatives for Janel Grant, who has filed a lawsuit against WWE and several individuals, including Vince McMahon, issued a public statement addressing the situation and reaffirming their legal position. Far too long, abuse was allowed to thrive under WWE's leadership. Instead of righting this wrong, WWE has done nothing to ensure those responsible are held accountable. This attempt to sweep misconduct under the rug will backfire. We look forward to the full set of facts, including those about Mr. Lesnar, coming out in a court of law where they belong. But in the meantime, we refer you back to Janelle Grant's update complaint, which outlines in detail the abuse she endured by McMahon and others while employed at WWE. Okay, really simple for me. You want me on your side, Janelle Grant? Did you meet him in person? Did you meet him in person? If there was something that actually physically went down, maybe there's a different side of the reason you were sending those pictures. But again, even reading into the text messages that were in the original lawsuit that were public for everybody, she was openly participating in the sexting at least. I don't know, dude. That's what I'm at, right? Okay, so they took Brock Lesnar away. They took him off of programming. They reviewed him. They decided to bring him back now. But again, with that lawsuit, it's like what was in there was horrific, right? But the more that came out to me, the messages, uh, the timeline of okay, like she was working there under a six-figure salary. She really had no business being in the title position what she was in, and she actually signed on to wasn't yeah, those of you that actually remember this lawsuit, you can bring this up. Her contract literally outlined think it was a six-figure salary, and then bonus gifts in a bogus position that she had no experience in, and it was clearly for Vince McMahon to have her around in the office. That's just the way I viewed that one, right? But we're not talking about Vince McMahon. We're talking about Brock Lesnar. If Brock Lesnar just sent some really fucked up fantasy text, I want if it's me adults, I really don't care. Unless there's some more to it, again, her lawsuit kind of fell apart near the end there. But I want to move on to Brock Lesnar returning and what he did to the for the UFC, right? Which is why he's a draw like no one else. He only had 8 fights in his career. Um, Started off in K1, got a first round knockout over Min So Kim, and then in 2008 he signed into the UFC. They gave him Frank Mir, and this was the fight right here that I really remember being like, oh shit, like man, it's Brock Lesnar. Like this is one of the fights as a kid where I look back and I can remember parts of this fight, like watching it with my dad. It was either, yeah, I think the first fight, right? Uh, yeah, Frank Mir submitted him with a knee bar in the first fight. Um, upset victory. Brock Lesnar never really was around much jiu-jitsu. Frank Mir, one of the best jiu-jitsu guys, and heavyweight, former champion, all that stuff. And then he ends up fighting Heath Herring in August. Gets that one back. Outgrapples Heath Herring. Then supposed to fight Mark Coleman in August, doesn't happen. He gets a shot at Randy Couture. Now this is purely because Brock Lesnar is a star, right? Brock Lesnar is a former WWE champion. But like this was an old Randy Couture. This was Randy Couture in his 40s. But Randy Couture in his 40s was fucking incredible. The guy got into MMA in his mid 30s, won the weight heavyweight belt a few times. I think he won the heavyweight belt twice. This was after he beat Tim Sylvia to win the belt back. And Brock Lesnar, who many believe, I don't know man, really good wrestler, doesn't know how to have good striking, and it's Randy Couture, man. He went out there and knocked out Randy Couture in the second round. Like, I think that everybody like looks at Brock Lesnar as, oh yeah, heavyweight champion, UFC and WWE champion. Dude, he knocked out Randy Couture in his fourth fight, becoming heavyweight champion. And then immediately the next thing you had was the rematch with Frank Mir because Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir went at each other. And the irony of Brock Lesnar, right, is like many WWE fans back in the day, like before he took over on the mic, were saying, Brock Lesnar can't promote for shit. Dude, when he knocked out Frank Mir, and took that fucking microphone. Everyone has watched that fucking interview, man. You know, Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass, pulled it out, beat him over the head with it. And that right there, um, that made him a megastar. UFC 100, which I'm going to break my point in a second here. But you go on to, my favorite website, Typology, pay-per-view buys. UFC 100 1.3. That is one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time. What would that be? I suck at counting. 3, 6, within like top 20, or say. And that was right when the sport was kind of getting seriously. I remember watching, like, okay, so granted at this time I was 4, so, I wasn't exactly the biggest martial arts fan. I just saw people fighting on my TV and I was like, fuck yeah, man. Around this time, what stood out to me about Brock Lesnar, besides his size, was like, you look at other heavyweights, and then you look at Brock Lesnar and his speed, and he did gas out, 100%. Shane Carwin fight the next fight, right? Shane Carwin, big dude, undefeated. Uh, they did a season of the Ultimate Fight. Yeah, they did. They did. Yeah, it was Lesnar Carwin. That was that was the season with Tony Ferguson, I think, right? Yeah, I could be wrong. You can let me know in the comments. But Shane Carwin was a fucking animal, man. Like, yeah, I'll just go to his record here. 12-2. Just to give you that one. Um, Wrestled in the Olympics, I think. But first round knockout, first round guillotine, submission, TKO over Justice Smith, submission, TKO, submission, TKO. Like, gets into the UFC. Gabriel Gonzaga was a pretty big deal back then. But first round knockout, first round knockout. Uh, I vividly remember watching the Gonzaga fight. I watched it eventually, like years later, but like then he KO'd Frank Mir to win the interim title. And where is it here? That first round, man, Shane Carwin fucked him up. Like, it, modern day refereeing, that fight would have been stopped. Well, it would have been stopped within 15 seconds. But then Brock Lesnar fucking survives that round, survives an absolute beating, bleeding from his eyebrow. Like, you would never think you would see Brock Lesnar at that stage, outside of WWE. And then he comes back in the second round, gets the wrestling going. Is able to get him down, gets the arm triangle. And this was one hell of a comeback win. And I I remember being, 2010, I would have been 6 at the time. Man, I remember that win. I really do. And then we waited into Kane's fucking all. Okay, so I remember because I was a kid, right? My dad was the UFC fan. He told me a bit about Cain Velasquez. I was like, yeah, he's good. He's knocking people out. Really good wrestler. But it's Brock fucking Lesnar, right? It's not even nowhere near the size. Cain Velasquez back then, 8-0. We obviously know what happened next. Them and JDS, which I believe is one of the greatest trilogies. No, is one of the greatest trilogies in MMA history. But like, Kane fucking annihilated him on the feet, and then it got to the ground, and this was like Division One NCAA Brock Lesnar. He could not do anything. They later had Kane go over to the WWE. He won the title. Apparently, it was a boring storyline. After that one, though, he was supposed to fight JDS GDS obviously fought the champ. He fought Overeem, and now 2011 Overeem. And fuck, I have the vivid memory specifically of like, again, my dad's like, oh, Brock Lesnar's fighting, and I'm like, oh, who's he fighting? Alistair Overeem. And then he shows me a picture of. Okay, what's for none of you that have seen it, but I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen this. 2001, Alistair Overeem. Like, like, perfect. This is a UFC fight. This was, and again, Overeem, I know he never won the UFC belt. Incredible kickboxing, all that. Dude, he went in there against that. And, round one, body kick, followed by punches. Yeah, no, like, that fight, I'm not even gonna fucking lie. Like, it was absolutely the battle of the juice heads, dude. But, like, man, even as a big Brock Lesnar fan, like, you walk across the cage and you're like, no fucking shot. No fucking shot. You know, Brock Lesnar doesn't have access to the horse meat, man. But, oh, man. That was it, though. The diverticulitis took him out of the sport. And honestly, when Brock Lesnar went over to the WWE, that's when I started watching WWE. Like, I had kids in my school, like, were fans of it. My mom was a fan of the WWE back in the day. But Brock Lesnar, man, he's the only reason I actually started caring for it the amount of time that I did. Again, this is the biggest pay per views that ever happened in the sport of, well, not even the sport. And, selling fights, these are the biggest fights. Mayweather Pacquiao boxing. Mayweather biggest pay per view star of all time. Mayweather McGregor 4.3, UFC 229, 2.4. Mayweather again, Mayweather Canelo, Poirier McGregor 2, Diaz McGregor 2, Poirier McGregor 3. But before McGregor, Lesnar Carlin, we passed UFC 100. He headlined Couture versus Lesnar again when they knocked out Randy Couture. You get the point. Like, Lesnar overrange 750, like 750,000 pay per view buys in 2010. Like, you look at, like, Lesnar over him, it's ahead of Ferguson Gaethje, Izzy Costa, Jones Gustafson. Brock Lesnar legitimately is the second biggest draw to ever come into the sport. Maybe Topuria could pass him off and pass McGregor. But man, Lesnar is big to the fight game. Lesnar, without Brock Lesnar, I wouldn't be interested in MMA. Without Brock Lesnar, we wouldn't have had one of our, very first $1 million or million pay per view buy card. Now, I'm not going to defend Vince McMahon, but I'm going to come out and say this. You can't really cancel a guy who just texted a 43, I think 43, 40. You can't cancel a 47-year-old man for texting a 42-year-old woman. I'm sorry. Maybe there's more to the situation, but I don't see it. I'm glad to see Brock Lesnar back in the fight game. He's one of the best to do it. Shout out Paul Heyman once again. Well, let me know. I know this is a longer video, but big Brock Lesnar fan. Let me know, what do you think about Brock Lesnar returning from the Vince McMahon controversy? Are you happy to have him back if you're a WWE fan? Do you want to see him fight on the White House card? I don't know. Francis Ngannou versus Brock Lesnar, White House card. Do it.